Okay, welcome to a little small tutorial on points of sail. I'm in auto sail mode at the moment. Some people here will wonder why I can move my boat. It's because after you edit the sail, it then allows you to be able to only view it from one direction like this, but still at the same time be able to change course. So at the moment we're in irons, which means that we're pointing directly into the wind, and from here I will have a look at the TWA up in the corner up here, and you'll notice until I get to around about 13, 14, 15 TWA that basically my main and my foresail are luffing. Luffing is when the sails are just sort of shimmering back and forward. So from here we move into close hauled position, and at close haul we're very close to the wind, and we're basically beating, as they say, against the wind and moving upwind. From here we move around about 40 to 50 degrees, and this would be called a close reach. Now under close reach, your speed has obviously increased. You know, from before where it was about 3.5, we're now at about 6.7. And from here we'll move to a beam reach, which is around about 80 to 110 degrees. So as I get to about 90, you're going to see the sail change. There we go there. This is now my code O. Unfortunately you can't see from this, but the code O is a much larger sail than the jib that was on before. And once again, you can see the speed here. It's about 9.1. So on a beam reach, this is basically the fastest point of sail for most boats. Although you will find on some boats that a broad reach and sometimes a close reach will be just as fast, if not faster. So as I move around a little bit more, so I don't want to hit the island either, we get up to around about 120 degrees and the Jenica pops up. So right now we're doing a broad reach with the Jenica up, and as you see the speed has dropped a little bit to 8.1, and we'll continue around until we get to what's called running. So running with the wind, and you can see that the Jenica is being loosened and the main is being popped out more and more. So if you're thinking about what's happened in that 180 degree revolution, we've gone from the sails being very, very tight between, you know, when we get, sorry, the sails being very, very tight when we're close hauled. Close reach, the sails are out a little bit more. Beam reach, well, we changed to a code O, and that gave us a little bit more sail area. And then to a broad reach where the Jenica came up, and as we move to a running position, you can see that basically the sails are trying to catch that by being the furthest out they can be. We move back again on the other side, once again exactly the same. So here we go, we have, oh, I'll just go back a little bit. I want to try and get a wing on wing. Okay, there we go. Wing on wing is where you have the main on one side and the Jenica on the other side. This in real sailing, this is fairly dangerous sometimes, as is, and I'll cover jibing and tacking in a moment. But jibing is usually considered much more dangerous because, as you see, when I move across, the boom, which is this black bar here, it moves across very, very quickly. So once again, we're getting back into a broad reach, and you can see the sails once again being adjusted to come back more and more closer to the boat. They're being pulled in, and from there we're going to go to back to a broad reach again, and you'll see the code O pops in once again. As I move across to the 90, you can see the sails being pulled more and more in, and then it transitions back to the jib. Okay, and the jib is as far out as it can be, and once again, as I move back through to a beam reach and a close reach, you will see that the jib and the main is going to be pulled closer to the center line. The center line is the center line of the boat. And once again, we get pretty close, 20 degrees, 18 degrees. We start luffing again, and then back into irons. Okay, all I want you to notice here in this minute sequence of sped up sequence is how the wind oscillates. So you should be looking at I'm trying to point my boat here to keep it in irons so that you can actually see on the heading here what the true wind direction is, and it's moving from around about 110, 109, 110 back through to around about 130, I think it was. Now the wind in game oscillates a bit. It does vary by how much it does oscillate depending on where you are and the wind in that locale, as well as the timing. So how do we move upwind with our waypoint here when the wind is directly coming towards us? Well, taking note of the oscillation that does occur, as well as, you know, the angle, so whether we want to be close reached or whether we want to go into more of a close hauled position. The thing that we need to look at, or the thing that I look at the most to practice this, is my bearing to waypoint as well as the true wind direction. Now, as the true wind direction goes below the bearing to waypoint, we want to make the angle towards our mark as good as possible. So therefore I'm going to push off, and I'm not doing a perfect angle here. I'm just looking at about 25 degrees TWA. I will talk about boat speed later on regarding this. But as you can see, our angle here, considering where the wind is, should be or will be better towards this mark. So as we continue on, you will notice that the TWD here is about to once again cross our BTW, which means that because I'm set on keeping or maintaining the angle to the wind, my heading is reducing here from 98 to 97. So that means I'm getting pushed further away. So what I need to do is I need to cross over in a fairly smooth but quick manner, and that is what's called a tack. Okay, going from starboard tack to a port tack. And once again, I'm just going to keep about 28, 29 degrees. I'm on auto trim here as well, just so that you know. And you can see that my heading angle here, okay, is changing as the TWD changes. So once again, the TWD is coming back towards our bearing to waypoint. So in a moment, when it crosses over again, I'm going to be looking to once again tack. Now, this is not always the fastest way either. Sometimes you want to stay on one tack for a longer period of time because you do lose speed as you go across the wind. And sometimes it's much better to stay on one tack for a lot longer and then tack back when you're ready. It all depends on the oscillation of the wind, how far you are trying to go, and obviously in longer journeys, determining how the wind will change over that period of time. But in this small little short scenario here of me coming up towards the waypoint, you can see that I'm just moving from side to side. Now, I will talk about VMC and VMG at some other point when I look at racing, but these basically will give you a good indicator, if you don't already know, of the speed. So once again, just waiting. Sometimes the wind, as I've said before, doesn't oscillate true. It's not on rails. Sometimes it stays at a fixed heading for a certain amount of time. Sometimes the oscillation is much larger. Sometimes it is shorter. So these are the things to consider as well. Anyway, as the true wind direction comes once again above our bearing to waypoint, I want to once again tack across and use that angle to its best effect. Okay, so going downwind and doing some jibes. Well, once again, just like a tack, which is going upwind, a jibe is going from side to side of the wind, changing the sails from port to starboard, while you're going downwind. Now, most sailors know that if you're at 180 TWA or around about this is not actually the fastest point of sail. It has to do with the aerodynamics and lift of the sail, which I will talk about in another advanced video. But the whole principle here is very similar to tacking in the sense that you want to get the best angle that you can from your TWD and your bearing to waypoint. So at the moment, the wind is pointing in that direction. Now, if I move above it, I'm going further away from my bearing to waypoint, so that would be the wrong side to go on, obviously. So what we want to do, once again, is head towards our waypoint. Once again, I won't talk about the best TWA here. I'm just using about 160 degrees, maybe a little bit more. And what you will notice is, as the wind changes again, we're going to be, once again, our angle of incidence is going to be pushed away from the bearing to waypoint. So once again, when this wind direction comes directly behind us again, we'll probably want to jibe again. Now, once again, as I said before, this all depends on how far the course is, how far the mark is. Certainly in the short races, sometimes it's actually better
to pick or to go on a run rather than go on, you know, a broad reach. So it all depends on how far you're traveling. And once again, you don't always have to do this. But see, if I come back up to my bearing to waypoint here, the wind is directly, almost directly behind me. So once again, I jibe across, and you saw the sails basically go from one side to the other, and we're off again. So just in this manner, you can sail downwind, hopefully as quickly as you can.